Well, good evening, viewers, and welcome to this edition of the Roundtable, just so that we can go through some of the top events that we're going to be discussing today. The carnival festivities end, but not without speculation of corruption. More shocking news about the CIP program, and should the government give concessions on the unpopular 2.5% levy to a company to develop a certain project in the Rodney Bay area, while you, the people of St. Lucia, have to pay? Let us hear your thoughts on that coming up in just a moment. The panel this evening, we have got the former Minister of Economic Development and former MP for Castries Southeast. He's better known as the right guy, Honorable Guy Joseph. We've also got the former chairman of the Carnival National Development Committee, it was called in those days. That is Mr. Lionel Ellis. So we'll be having a very scintillating discussion on the program today as we go through various issues. I want to start today with, gentlemen, before I go forward, I want to say welcome to the program.
Thank you, Dominic, for having me on the program. It's been a little while, so I'm happy to be back.
It's been a while. It's been a while. It's been a while. But you look very fresh. You look well rested. Welcome back from your vacation. And
thank you.
We do have a big battle ahead to make sure that we bring very timely information to you, the members of the public. And making your debut on the Roundtable, but no stranger to the media, a former general manager of Radio St. Lucia as well, but with Nemo, has done work with Carnival. It's in that capacity I welcome Mr. Lionel Ellis this evening.
Thank you, Dominic. It's a pleasure to sit with you to discuss issues in Carnival, and also having the right guy on my right side.
He's on your right side. Mr. Ellis, I want to start with you. We're going to be discussing Carnival in the next 30 minutes or so. The Carnival festivities, they have ended, but not without speculation of corruption, of favoritism, of victimization. Before we get into the deep stuff, I want to talk to you a little bit about, take us through Carnival. We were discussing at the break some of the challenges that you would have had to confront in the early beginnings of this festival, which has become the island's main cultural showpiece.
Okay, first of all, Dominic, thank you very much. A lot of people today will not know the history of St. Lucia Carnival. I've been around long enough, from the days of Miss Booty and Imbert Roberts, and a number of the early formations of Carnival. As a matter of fact, I was responsible for being able to provide recording of the 1985 Carnival when I came back to St. Lucia, and I presented that video to the National Television Network and the government of St. Lucia to keep in history, because that's one of the early recordings of Carnival. I've been to carnivals throughout the region and participate in St. Lucia Carnival in the committee, which was the National Carnival Development Committee. And then I was invited to become chairman of the committee with the then Minister Damian Greaves. And that was on the 2nd of December 1998. And at that time, Carnival was slated in February, pre-Lenten. And the government subvention at the time, as it was called, was only $100,000. That was what was $100,000 to stage Carnival. Mind you, it was a smaller thing, but at the same time, that subvention was only $100,000. The government gave the NCDC, through my chairmanship, a 32-point mandate to develop Carnival locally, regionally, and internationally. So I had a serious job on my hands with the committee, the components that make up Carnival, like the Carnival Bands Association, the Steel Band Association, the Calypso Association. All of these associations formed the NCDC. And we started promoting carnival as directed by government to provide and improve the carnival product. Of course, let me say that with me was a gentleman who's gone to the great beyond, Gandalf Sinclair. And one of the things that we were instrumental in doing is getting the Martinicans to come and join our carnivals. That's what introduced the Martinicans into our carnival. And they did a spectacular job, and they're still here today, joining in 2024. And we went around the Caribbean. A contingent of about 20 people went to Trinidad to get involved and understand what the true concept of carnival was to our Caribbean people.
How has it changed from then to now?
Well, I'll tell you.
Did features like the Bam Bam Wall existed, for example?
Well, there's always Bam Bam in Carnival, first of all. It's just that it was excited by revelers in St. Lucia going up to stage themselves, because that area of Castries was a convenient thing. It was almost in between two roads. If you notice, there's a road above and a road below. And when the bands come down, some of the revelers would go up the overpass and then end up as a spectacle, and therefore some of them would jump on the wall, and that created the Bam Bam Wall. There's also a copying of the Bam Bam Wall around St. Lucia and internationally, because I understand in New Orleans there's a Bam Bam Wall now depicting some of what's happening in St. Lucia. But what was the biggest problem in Carnival was that people couldn't see the value of changing the date of Carnival from pre-Lenten, where we were completing with Trinidad and Dominica. Trinidadians would never leave Trinidad Carnival to come to St. Lucia, neither Dominica, or maybe very few. But in the changing of a date, we wanted also to pattern a concept of carnival followers, because people like jazz. They go around the world to jump and to see carnival, whether it's in Brazil, whether it's in Trinidad, whether it's Vinci Mas, whether it's Crop Over. A lot of those people go to those carnivals to experience the reveling and see the artistry in carnival, and that created even people like Peter Minshall in Trinidad to be internationally acclaimed. We wanted to do something with carnival. I teamed up with the International Caribbean Association that developed the Labor Day celebration, the Eastern Parkway in New York, and Carlos Lezama and a number of carnival enthusiasts from around the world came to St. Lucia and had a conference here during my term, you know, and that gave us the concept that carnival was going to be bigger than ever, because at that time Vinci Mas was above us. Crop Over was taking a big stage in the Eastern Caribbean. St. Lucia Carnival was just moving into existence, being regional and international. Now, and from the time we did that, just to give you this, from the time we did that, the Trinidadians now could come here, Bajans can come here, Vinci's, and everybody could focus on Trinidad Carnival, that was focusing on St. Lucia Carnival, and that is what the result we've seen today.
Now, you mentioned $100,000 was the subvention from the government. How did the carnival budget reach the heights that it is now?
Okay, when I looked at the overruns,
it's now what, $3 million?
Yes, something like that, for over a period of 3 years. When I looked at the statistics to present carnival, I realized that what we had to do for carnival would not cut it with $100,000. I remember I was on a flight to New York, and coincidentally the Minister of Tourism, Philip J. Pierre, was on the left side of the plane. I remember clearly. I was traveling with Agnes Francis, and I said to him, we need at least $250,000, which I thought was a challenge at the time, coming up from $100,000 to $250,000, and he was very negative towards putting that kind of money into carnival. But so when we went to the following carnival, we had cost overruns, and that created a stink. I was asked to resign publicly, but when Damien Greaves called the meeting of the enthusiasts and said, Mr. Ellis didn't do anything, because the bands at the time were refusing to jump carnival in 1999
So how did we get into the millions?
Well, we get in there. I want to make the point. The bands were refusing to jump Carnival unless we had given them an increase in prize money, which we couldn't raise after developing the Carnival. It was when Alan Chasney became Minister of Tourism or Prime Minister that he, not with any discussion with me, saw the wisdom and had the futuristic look at Carnival and say, listen, that money could not do what we wanted to do. I was then out of Carnival, and I was very happy that he saw the wisdom to put $1 million a year into Carnival, at least in the first instance.
No, I was fortunate to have benefited from that era. Guy Joseph, you were in that cabinet, and while you can't talk about the you can talk about the governance of Carnival, not to get into the nitty-gritty and the revelry of it, for you know, obvious reasons. I mean, not everyone in St. Lucia is into Carnival. There are some people for religious reasons that don't partake in the festivities because of the revelry and so on. But certainly from the governance standpoint, as a former government minister, you were in that 2006 to 2011 cabinet where $1 million would have been spent for the first time on Carnival. I remember that announcement. I was in private sector life.
Yes, I think it is clear that the Honorable Alan Chasney came in with a clear vision and a plan as to where St. Lucia should be in the future. And as Minister of Tourism appointed by Sir John, handpicked, you see, that's the point that a lot of people miss. There were people who won their seats who wanted to be Minister of Tourism. And Sir John, in his wisdom, coming back into government at 80 plus, decided that he needed a man to lead this department of tourism, seeing that we had moved. Because remember, the Labour Party moved the economy from an agricultural-based economy to a service-based economy. With the demise of the banana industry, which started with the coupe par coupe arrangement under the Labour Party, we saw the dismantling of SLBGA, and then you had all these banana companies. So bananas was no longer green gold, and it didn't play a prominent role. And Sir John coming back and seeing the struggles of the economy, handpicked Alan Chasney to be Minister of Tourism. And Mr. Chasney at the time put in a request to Sir John that he needed a certain amount of money to properly market St. Lucia and to use the local festivals, which included Carnival, to put an injection of capital into it. And I mean, at the time, people felt that was a lot of money to invest in Carnival. But it was done with a clear plan that this would become a key marketing strategy to make St. Lucia more visible globally.
I think that Alan Chasney, Mr. Ellis, has always felt that Carnival should be the biggest festival. It should be bigger than jazz. It should be bigger than anything that imports talent into St. Lucia. When I was the Minister for Tourism, and I benefited from that, and I worked in a cluster arrangement with Honorable Fortuna Belrose, who looked after the cultural aspect of things. And she did a stellar job in supporting the Carnival and contributing to the development of it. And that is because the entire cabinet was behind what she was doing. So, for example, we established the events management company. The budget also received even more from government subventions. We kept investing more and more and more. And the plan was to transition away from the jazz festival and to make Carnival the biggest festival, to scale down jazz, but to make Carnival the biggest thing, because this is us. This is our festival. That's the indigenous festival, of opposed to jazz music, which does correlate with our history, but not as big and as expressive as the Carnival festivities are.
I think, just to chime in there briefly, the plan was, and you know as Minister of Tourism, was to go back to pure jazz. So you'd have that segment of pure jazz, but you'd have that music festival that we call Soleil, that would run you through from the jazz period all the way to Journée Creole in October. And you would have various performances and activities throughout that time period. And you would bring in different artists at different times. So it is clear that there was a plan. Not that you not have jazz at all, but that you would have a music festival, because the music festival was not just designed for celebrating. It became a marketing tool. It became a way of promoting St. Lucia, especially during the slow period. And that is where, when you have limited resources in a country, you cannot use the resources in a careless manner. You must find creative ways that there are spin-offs from every activity that you would undertake. And I think that is the quality of leadership that Honorable Alan Chasney brought to the table. In looking at the return on investment. Because really you are taking the resources of the country, taxpayers' earnings, and you are putting it into various festivals and activities. And you would want to know that while you don't collect money directly as receipts at the gate for Carnival, but everybody who comes into the island would pay the $95 US departure tax. They would stay in a hotel, they would eat, they would hire a taxi. So all the spin-offs would be in the consumption aspect of it. And that is what we see lacking. I mean, the present government is spending much more than we are getting returns for, and that we will come to a little
speaking
later.
of spending, gentlemen, as we're still in this first segment and we're halfway through it, there is controversy. At least 2 owners of radio stations have come out to say, look, we are not in agreement. I mean, Stanley Lucien, of all people, who's a big St. Lucia Labour Party leaning talk show host, has come out to say publicly and bluntly that he is in disagreement with the manner in which the St. Lucia Labour Party has distributed the ads. Apparently HTS has not gotten any ads at the time when he spoke. Andre Paul, who owns the Rev Up station, also, I don't see Andre as political as Stanley, but Andre was there complaining. We've heard Timothy Polio complaining about his new spin show being victimized over the years for various government ads, whether it's the national lotteries or other state-owned corporations. I mean, should we be really using taxpayers' monies to this effect to profit other media houses? A lot of speculation is raised over RCI, raised over Choice TV. What do you gentlemen say?
Well, I wanted to respond to something that was brought up earlier, but with reference to Stanley Lucien, let's face it. I was really shocked that Stanley Lucien would be concerned about the fact that some stations are not getting it, because it seems like when HTS or his radio station that he broadcasts on was getting the lump sum of the advertising and so on, they had no complaint from him or no sympathy for anybody else. Now he understands that there needs to be more equity in the distribution of advertising revenue from the government. But that's how it is sometimes. But the problem is that we must see that government understands that every station that plays its part in broadcasting to the public should get a piece of the pie, you know, and especially if they're doing a good job, they should be rewarded. Now, at the same token, just recently on the question of disaster preparedness, a lot of stations were suffering. They were not getting that kind of essence of appreciation that they play their part in the community. So it's not only about Carnival, Stanley Lucien, it's about other factors, a broader view as to how the distribution of public funds should be presented to the public through the radio stations. And that is key.
I think that it is clear to every right-thinking St. Lucian that the Labour Party is running the country like a private club. It is evident that if you don't belong to a certain clique, and even if you belong to the clique, but you may have spoken out of turn at some point in time, that you are going to suffer the consequences of this action. And we consistently hear the Prime Minister of all persons speaking more about protecting the victory than protecting the well-being of the people he has been elected to govern. And that is where and some of it is speculation, but the evidence is overwhelming that there is biasness in how the government is going about using state resources.
So how did you select which TV company, for example, would do the live for Carnival? Well, because there is some speculation now over how that TV station that did the broadcast, they were handpicked.
No, what used to happen during my time is that the TV stations would make a presentation. They would say what kind of coverage they offer, and then based on the budget, most of the time there wasn't a budget for that because you didn't even have enough money to pay the prize money. So, for example, HTS was the first station that did the videotaping of Carnival in terms of making sure that people could buy tapes of St. Lucia's Carnival. I remember while I was in New York one time, I picked up the supply of videotapes, VHS tapes, and that was how they were getting their returns. You see, because there was no money. But today, if the
and the board would consider the most
that's
so
right.
It's important now for the organizers to tell us, because you see, you've got, I mean, I don't believe in attacking the media, but the media themselves are now complaining, and the government has got to come out and explain this is so corrupt. Then the information about the ads, the chairman of the Carnival Planning Committee, that could have been you because you were owner of a radio station as well.
Yeah.
But it would have been awfully corrupt, Mr. Ellis, if you were the chairman of the planning committee, owned a radio station, and your colleagues in the media were accusing you of having most of the ads. And that seems to be the case. And I'm not saying that this is conclusive on the RoundTable, but the Minister of Culture, who's Ernest Hilaire, must come out and to allay the fears that people have. There is speculation about the level of favoritism that is being shown to Radio Caribbean International, which is also owned by the chairperson of the planning committee. And the chairperson also had one of the side events which is a commercial activity. And then it then raised the question, you as the chairman, who is responsible for the equitable and fair distribution of monies pertaining to one of the biggest cultural showpieces. We're talking, what is this, millions of dollars it is today? Should you also have a side event which is commercially driven, which could potentially benefit from the funds that you are called upon to distribute? There's no clearer conflict of interest.
Yes, I have heard that some of the components and some of the personnel in the tourism industry and the Carnival Committee, the present Carnival Committee, have had, for example, I understand there were about 60 plus private fetes, and some of those very persons that were coordinating the carnival was involved in the private fetes. I don't know what contribution is made.
They were the people organizing
and making time. So they had priority over what can be and what couldn't be. And these are some of the things that we have to look at.
I think that we are seeing the highest level of corruption in the history of this country. And it is sad that the people who spoke the most about this are the ones perpetuating what is happening. Because when you look at a government is responsible to be fair and equitable. You have so many radio stations, you have so many television stations. Why not distribute it equally? Or why not have them tender? Can they show us the tender process that was used to determine who's giving the best package? Because the Prime Minister himself have said on several occasions they are using the tender process. So is he saying that and his deputy Ernest Hille is doing something else? Because to be in a situation where their own people are complaining, it's to tell you how bad it is for people who they align with the United Workers' Party. So if Labour Party operatives in the media are crying foul in this situation, can you imagine where the others who are non-aligned or who may be leaning more towards UWP, where they would feature? I mean, Mr. Pierre, Prime Minister of St. Lucia, your words will not cut it. It's not sufficient for you to come and pretend that you don't know what is happening. We know that you know what is happening. We know that you facilitate it. You are the Minister of Finance. You are the one who assigned the budget to the Ministry of Tourism, and you know what was in it for the Carnival Development Committee and what they had to do. So to tell us that you're not accountable or you don't know, I mean, when Stanley, I told Stanley when I was on What Makes Me Mad with him, I said, Stanley, you are more Labour than the Labour Party itself. You do more PR for the Labour Party than all the paid persons inside the Prime Minister's office. And today you are out there complaining about what is happening. Now that is just what we know. That's the tip of the iceberg. We don't know what is beneath. These are just the things that are visible. Can you imagine the things they are doing undercover that we have not seen yet? And I believe time will reveal a lot more things about the level of nepotism, corruption. And let me say here, I warned us in St. Lucia, when you see the Labour Party spoke about friends, family and foreigners, that is exactly what they had in mind to do. But they label UWP, so when they do it, you would think is somebody else that is doing it, because it is evident, and we are going to come to the friends, family, and foreigners maybe in the next segment.
Well, gentlemen, we're going to have to continue. We're going to have to stop here. We're going to go straight to a break now, but when we come back, more speculation of corruption in the carnival. We're going to also deal with the CIP and also this scandalous situation where the government has just waived a 2.5% levy for a company that's developing a project in Rodney Bay, while you, the people of St. Lucia, will have to pay that. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. More scintillating discussion coming up here on the Roundtable.
If you're going to grow your country, you have to grow the capacity. You have to make sure they're healthy. You also have to make sure they're well educated. But that takes a plan. It takes a commitment. And it's not about just words. It has to be much more significant. And I have not heard anything here today, Mr. Speaker, that would give me any comfort, nor should it give any other St. Lucian comfort, that they're going to use this opportunity they found on their lap appropriately, and to make sure that the young people of this country and the workforce of this country are going to get jobs that they can make careers of, jobs they can raise their families on, jobs in which, yes, they can become international and raise their own standard of living. That should be the aspiration. And I did not hear any of that today, Mr. Speaker. I thank you. Okay? The member from Castries, he said it was only a madman who would believe that tourism would recover. Mr. Speaker, I'm challenging you. Anything I say, he'll say, I'll do it. That's a challenge. Anything you speak of, I say, like the member from Miku South says, I'll play a team. I challenge him. Anything he says, I say, play a team.
Flashback.
The government is continuing as usual, as if nothing happened. The government of St. Lucia is the only government that believes that tourism will get back to how it was pre-COVID. I think it's the only government in the world that believes that. There's no other government. There's no other government, I think, who believes that except the government of St. Lucia. So what do? We continue with business as usual. We continue to build an airport based on the fact that our airport would get its income from arrivals. Are you serious? Do you really believe? I never knew. I never understood the impact of tourism in St. Lucia.
Thank you for staying with us. Mr. Ellis, you had a thought before we have to go to the break.
I wanted to say two things. One is the question of the transparency. How is the money being spent by government to Carnival? We must get the details of that. And secondly, the question of conflict of interest between the bands and the individuals who are funding these bands. These are two very important issues. And the other point I want to bring out is the success of Carnival. How is it measured? And you know, when Honorable, I said the right guy on my right, on my right, talk about the comments or the intention of government with regards to providing information to the public and the corruption aspect of it. Who judges this corruption? How is it judged? Because I heard the Prime Minister talk about he will not tolerate any corruption, or his government will not be entertaining any corruption in his government or anywhere. But who is the person to determine whether it's corruption or not? Is it the same Prime Minister? That is a good question. Who will determine who is corrupt and who is not corrupt? Because if it's the Prime Minister to determine whether his ministers are corrupt, you're not going to get that.
I think that personally with Carnival, if you know that the chairperson has commercial interest in any aspect of Carnival, then you should not put that person to chair or to organize or to be ahead of the organizing body of Carnival, because then people are going to feel, Mr. Guy Joseph, the right guy, who's to my left, to your right, that they're not fairly treated.
But there will be always some element of corruption, even when the UWP is in. But the question is, bring out the details, bring out the facts, let the public see what you have done, Even when it's jazz, have we got a thorough, a detailed report on jazz, where the money was spent for jazz?
Up to now, we don't know what is the cost of jazz.
So there's
we
always
don't know
speculation.
what the cost of World Cup is.
So
and we're seeing as well, with the issue on the World Cup, you've seen pictures surfaced of works that are incomplete. And what they did is that they tried to make Alan Chasney, the leader of the opposition, look as if he was telling a lie. But what they did was they photoshopped the videos that he shared out and put a finished part of the stadium. People sent me the stadium seats filled with cement, for example. So this was a rushed job. I don't even think that they have completed the road up to now.
As we speak, they are still there
working on the road that takes you to the stadium.
No, they're working on,
and they are working on the stadium of the stadium.
Yeah.
So sorry.
And have you found out who the contractor is?
No, I'm not. I understood that there were a number of contractors, but last minute they had to go to some of the major contractors. I don't want to call contractors' name at this point in time that I cannot verify who's been involved in the process. But what I can tell you is that it is obvious that the Labour Party is firing a lot of scatter shots. There are no targets. They don't know what they are doing. They are reacting to a lot of situations. And given where we are today and what is happening with the issues that are being raised, do we expect answers? No. We do not expect answers today. But I can tell you that the laws enacted by the United Workers' Party when we were in government, after the Ramsahoi report on the Rochamel and these other entities, one of the laws that was passed is that if you commit a corrupt act in government, there are no statutes of limitations. It could be 40 years from now that it is found out. You can't be held liable and accountable. So Hila can go his merry way today, Philip J. Pierre can go his merry way, and all the others who are facilitating these activities that are very questionable in nature. A time is coming when you will have to account and you will have to answer. That is why the Labour Party is so desperate not to lose elections, and their focus is you need to protect the victory. But it is not the victory that they are concerned about protecting, you know. It is the corruption that is in there they want to keep hidden.
Now, I don't want you to preempt my next discussion because we have a lot to say on corruption. But I want to wrap up this conversation on Carnival. And the last question, there is this speculation from last year that a certain Trinidadian artist was paid from monies of the Jazz Festival, which comes from taxpayers' money, to fund a private show that the Minister of Culture is related to. And I'm talking about the Color Me Red show. We don't have any information, but do you gentlemen feel that in the best interest of transparency and good governance, that the minister should come out and to clear up this speculation, which has been existing from last year?
Yes.
And then further as well, what is his interest in?
Whenever a speculation or an accusation is made about the government should understand that they're the custodian, of the country's purse, and they have a responsibility to respond. I've heard several questions being asked over the past week as a citizen of St. Lucia, and we ask, and I don't want to preempt your next subject, but it's a responsibility that the government have to bring the answers. So if there's an accusation, I don't know if it's true, if it's not true. They know if it's true, and if it's not true, they should be able to come out and tell in a timely manner, the answer, so that everybody would squash that idea and give the evidence But when they don't do that, it leaves people to wonder whether they're really serious about the fact of transparency.
I want to bring
government.
you here, Guy, on this discussion.
I want to bring in 2 points. The Labour Party is involved in so much corrupt activity that I don't think they can differentiate what is reality from what is corruption. It is so much a part of what is happening. Now let me tell you, maybe you touch on it briefly. My information is that some of the shows of the jazz festival was paid for. So if the artist price for the night of performance was $400,000, the artist was paid $600,000 by the jazz festival to perform at private shows. Now, that is illegal, that is corrupt, and I challenge
But not just a private show that the Minister of Culture may have interest in.
May have interest. Now, listen to me. I don't even care if the minister is involved or the minister is not involved. That is, those who know should tell us, including the minister.
Correct.
The minister needs to declare his hand.
That's right.
Maybe the Integrity Commission needs to tell us, because when you do your integrity forms, you file for your integrity information, everything should be declared. So I think there are people who knows. But here's what I'm thinking as I look at this situation. If you charge me $100 to do something for me, but I tell you, okay, I have Mr. Ellis, who's my friend over there, he's having something, so if you do the two of us, if you do the two things for $150 for us, I would appreciate that. I would expect the $50 to come from Mr. Ellis. I would pay my 100, the 50 would come from him, and we would pay 150 and we would get 2 for paying 150 rather than paying 200. But Mr. Ellis cannot expect me to take my money and pay my $100 and pay the $50 for him when he's charging at the gate and earning money from the event. So St. Lucia needs to understand these private shows that was financed by and the jazz committee, the board will have to account. You can get away with it today because Labour is still in office, and you can hide the corruption that is there for now. But a time will come when an audit will be done. We will know what the artist bill was and what was paid. Because things can remain hidden for a period of time, but it can remain. I've said it several times. Time is a revealer of all things.
That's right.
And we are seeing, I will state it again, a very high level of questionable activities in everything that Ernest Hille is involved in. And you can take it from West Indies cricket down to the Range Rover and down to all the activities, the Jufali passport, now CIP and Carnival.
This goes straight into our next topic, the CIP.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Before we move to the next topic. Is it about time that all of these agencies, for example, the Jazz Committee, the Carnival Committee, should have a balance so that people would know from both sides of the political divide and so on?
Financial,
No. But apart from that, why should a national event like Carnival be organized entirely by the government hand-picked people? Why can't we have, like, for example, I understand certain boards are balanced. They have people from the
Carnival Bands Association.
No, not only that, from the St. Lucia Labour Party or the United Workers Party. Can we? No.
Both governments do the same.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
When UWP is in office, UWP
Exactly.
handpicks the people and they do the thing.
But you see, in that case,
when Labour Party people, when Labour Party is in government, they can handpick their people. The issue is the accountability.
but you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it, guy, unless you have somebody in there that can say, listen, I can provide you with this information because I'm a member of the committee.
Mr. Ellis, we did not get it today. Money does not disappear into thin air.
No, but the information we want to know.
Gentlemen, there's more corruption in the CIP. I mean, shockingly, Mr. Ellis, the minister said that when he was asked by DBS's Lisa Joseph how many passports were allocated, meaning how many passports the government agreed that Galaxy can sell in the real estate or the hotel development in canals, the minister said he had to ask Galaxy for permission to reveal that information.
But I remember,
what say you to that? What is your reaction?
listening to the minister at the time when Timothy Polio asked him about Jufali, whether Jufali had a passport. He beat around the bush. I mean, he beat around the microphone. He beat around anything he can get to answer the question honestly. Why does Galaxy have to tell the minister, give the minister permission to tell the public in St. Lucia how many passports? That should be something that should be commonly known. What's the secret in that? As a citizen, I don't see the secret in that.
So a report is supposed to be tabled in Parliament every year.
Correct.
On CIP. So does he have to ask Galaxy, can I table a report in Parliament that says how many passports? Now, let's get back to the root of this thing. Healy is a man of very questionable character. Everything he has been involved in is shrouded in controversy, in things that appear to be underhanded, and we can go back to the Jufali affair and the 4 diplomatic passports.
Have we ever gotten the
that Jufali
diabetes lab?
Never. Dr. Kenny Anthony was in Parliament talking about a diabetes lab, and I said to them, I remember I was in Parliament and we were debating. I said, you don't need a diabetes lab. All the research that is to be done on diabetes has been done. It is a lifestyle disease. So I said, if you wanted to do something, you should build a restaurant that would serve the right foods, that would help people to eat healthy and control the diabetes. So that was a waste. Jufali got his passport, he got his immunity, he died.
What do you think St. Lucia got in return?
St. Lucia got nothing than negative publicity in the international media.
Did the Labour Party get anything, in your suspicion?
Well, they said that there was a lab to be built, so I would assume they got the money. And I can only assume that they got the money, because if I deliver the passport to you, how you not delivering the money to the country? So was it given to the Labour Party? And that's why I tell you, the lines are blurred between the Labour Party and the government of St. Lucia. Now let's go back to Healy and what Healy is involved in. This is the highest level of disrespect to the average St. Lucian, far less for the more intellectual people of this country, to tell me that you as minister, elected by the people of St. Lucia, and given the privilege by the Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre to serve in the cabinet of ministers, that you are going to give a company a license or permission to sell St. Lucian passports, and then you have to ask that company for permission.
Ridiculous.
To tell us, I mean, Hiller could come up with a better lie than that nonsense he said there.
Absolutely.
And by now, you see, but when you are accustomed of doing things and getting away with it, you feel that you can do anything. And that is what Hiller has become. A burden on the people of this country. A man who, Martinez is saying that you've given 13,000 files.
And Martinez said this again on Sky FM.
But not just that. Let's go back to the base of this thing. A file can be equivalent to 4 passports. Because a file could be a mother, a father, and 2 children. So 13 files, 13,000 files could be equivalent to 52,000 passports. That is almost 25% of the population of St. Lucia.
More than 25%. More than.
Well, yeah, more than 25, but because it's 180.
But you see, gentlemen, when certain people believe that they're bright, I wonder what he thinks of himself, considering the so many different issues he's been involved with.
No, it's not what he thinks of himself, Mr. Ellis. It's what he thinks of us.
Well, maybe, yeah, that's true.
The people of St. Lucia. He thinks that we are the lowest class. We know nothing. And these are the problems that you come across. So let's go to the details of what Hiller said to us. He said he will ask, so I would assume that he is still in the waiting period. How long ago he said he's going to ask Galaxy if he can reveal?
Almost a month ago.
So did Galaxy say, no, you cannot, or yes, you can? Because by now, by the following day, Hiller should have been able to give us a response to say, I cannot tell you. But you see, that was a decoy. That was to avoid answering the question. Now, I don't need Hiller to answer that question. I believe what Mr. Martinez has said about the 13,000 files.
Because Hiller has given us no evidence.
Now here's where Hiller thinks he's smart.
You're getting back to my point.
He thinks, no. He thinks he's smart. But when you think you're smart, you have to think that the people are stupid. So he thinks he's smart, and he thinks that we are stupid. So he talks about the number of files that have been approved. Now, how many people apply for passports on a daily basis? Hundreds of St. Lucians go and apply for a passport. How many is approved on a daily basis? Might be 50, 60, 100. You can have 500 applications in one day, but you may only be able to process 100, which is 20%. So when Hiller comes out and says to us that I have, well, so far the CIP has approved, he never answered the question. Yes, you have approved 1,600?
1,367.
1,367. But there's still 2,000 pending. There's still another 500 that is in process. He has not told us that. That is why I know he was withholding information from the reporter. And I felt that the reporter should have pressed him a little more. Now think of it for a moment.
You hit the point there when you talk about the reporters, you know, because of what I've seen on TV, I'm amazed at the reporters just accepting the answer without saying. I remember even when somebody was interviewed, President Trump at the time was making had a press conference, and he didn't want to answer a particular reporter, and the reporter refused to give back the mic. You're going to answer my questions. We have reporters that do not allow the podium to direct them in a lot of cases when they have valuable questions to answer. You know?
So let's look at what Martinez has put out. Now some people, they go on Martinez's character and they want to, I'm not concerned about I'm not concerned about what Martinez. I am concerned about whether the information Martinez gave there is credible. Why did the head of CIP run up to Washington with his wife? What did he go and clear? Who paid his passage? Have we understood that? Was the passage paid by CIP? You see, these are the things that Ernest Hille and Philip J. Pierre, who is ultimately responsible, because Philip J. Pierre is shielding himself from these things as if he's not part of it. He is the chief facilitator of all of these irregularities in government. And
but as a St. Lucian, you must be ashamed that your deputy prime minister is now going to be a co-defendant in a racketeering, money laundering, fraud lawsuit.
Well, yes, it's not good for the image of St. Lucia. But as we always say, you are innocent until proven guilty.
But I'll say to you, I'll opine this on this show, and that is based on how Hilaire is jumping like a jumping jack and is very cagey with information. I have already judged him a guilty man.
Well,
that is in my judgment, and that is not a court judgment, but Mr. Minister, until you can come out and stop hiding behind the investor, stop hiding behind contracts. Because remember, the reason they said they didn't want to sign the memorandum of agreement because of a contract. But what we want now is information for us to make up our own minds. And my opinion thus far, I have to, like you guys, believe what Martinez has said, because Martinez is the only man that is forthright with the information and is confident, and he's actually quoting a number whereby our own government officials is not doing anything about it.
So understand how the Labour Party operates. They operate that way with UWP. Once you corner them, once you have them with the information, they begin to attack you personally. And so the personal attacks on Martinez is not surprising. Now, if the things they say about Mr. Martinez is true, then these raise bigger questions about the credibility of CIP in the OECS. Because how can you have a man of such questionable character being an agent selling CIP passports in this region? So if these fellas were smart, they would not even have gone down that road, because they are the ones calling into question the credibility of the CIP program in this region.
Yeah, I want you to hold that thought, gentlemen. We got to go to a break right now. Our producer has signaled that we're out of time for this segment, but we've got more coming up in just a moment on the CIP. We also have a letter from the opposition leader who has had cause to write to the Honorable Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre on an unlawful and unjust waiver of the 2.5% health and security levy, which you, the people of St. Lucia, continue to pay at gas stations, at various places like supermarkets and wherever you buy commodities. So we'll be right back in just a moment with this and more.
Now, I'm not surprised at that. The Sugar Association of the Caribbean said there was no sugar shortage anywhere. There's no problem with the supply of sugar. Yet still the government of St. Lucia was creative enough to be able to create a shortage of something that there's no shortage anywhere else in the world for. And that was sugar. So if you find it surprising that they were able to create a shortage for boxes, I don't find it surprising. If there's one thing this government is good at, it's doing the wrong things. You can give them 100% pass mark for doing the wrong things. They are not capable of doing the right things. All they are capable of doing is the wrong things.
Regarding the matter of underpricing, there's official memorandum from the Citizenship by Investment Program dated April 15, 2024. And it reads, unlawful reduction of real estate investment sum. And I'll read that memo for you. From the inception of St. Lucia's CIP program on 1st January 2016 until 31st December 2022, the qualifying investment sum into an approved real estate project was a minimum of $300,000 along with the applicable administrative fee. These are things that's very important to you. And that was changed by the leader of the opposition. His government reduced it.
Public debt in 2022 was at $4,395.1 million. In 2023, it is at $4,783,000,000, almost a 400 million increase in debt. Now remember, this is the government that spoke about for the first year they had to do no borrowings. And all of a sudden in the last 2 years, which means that our debt to GDP, which was just at 69.5% in 2022, has gone to 72.9% in 2023. And these are just preliminary figures.
And welcome back to the Roundtable. Our panel again, Guy Joseph and Lionel Ellis. We're having a very enjoyable discussion here tonight. Gentlemen, a story that has broken this week, a statutory instrument published by the current St. Lucia Labour Party administration, which I would like to share with viewers right now, which really has given a concession to a company, a foreign company, doing a development in Rodney Bay. The Rodney Bay City Center project. So the statutory instrument number is SI number 108 of 2024. The health and security tax, Guy Joseph, a very important tax. The government really placed this burden on the backs of the people of St. Lucia at a time when they were going through rising cost of goods in the supermarket, in the gas stations, and at various places where they do trade. I mean, now making a concession and waiving the tax for a company must be the most disappointing thing. I want to hear from you.
You know, this Labour Party government, and that is where we come to the issue of friends, family, and foreigners. The Labour Party uses one measurement for the local people and a different measurement for its other entities or other entities, not Labour Party entities, but other entities in general. So let's examine the timing of this announcement. My understanding is the copy of the Gazette came out the Friday before Carnival. Special edition of the Gazette to highlight, because that is a requirement by law, a waiver of the 2.5% levy, health and security levy. Now, I want to ask, who is best placed to pay this levy? The company or the local citizens of this country? The single mother who is unemployed and may do an occasional bounce and draw job here and there would have to pay that 2.5% levy. But a multi-million-dollar company that is earning substantial amounts of money, and I have no problems with the investment. We welcome the investment. What is the desperation with this government that 1 year into the implementation of this health and security levy that you are going to waive the levy for a company, and you choose on the eve of Carnival, when you think most people are drunk, most people are out there enjoying themselves, partying, focused on other things. You see, the Labour Party is not genuine. They are not honest. They are not transparent, and they are not accountable. Because to choose that time, so you think it would slip through the cracks, UWP is not slipping at the wheel.
I want to bring in Lionel Ellis here. Is this a complete betrayal of the people of St. Lucia, approving this for a big investor but not doing it for the small people of the country?
Well, you asked a question. I think certainly the fact is that the 2.5% levy should be for everybody. It should, basically, that's what I understand it to be. Everything you do is, when you're going to waiver something, what is the rationale? Why are you going to waiver something for a company that can afford to pay it?
Guy Joseph, you would remember that the people of St. Lucia would have gotten the tax at the time of inflation, and you were among the opposition voices saying this is not the right time given the high prices in supermarkets and gas stations.
It was certainly not the right time. It was certainly not the right time, and I will tell you, and it is still not the right time. And if they were going to cabinet and to zero
the rate of
the 2.5, it should be zeroed across the board for everybody.
Yeah.
This company is not more important than the average mother who has to feed the children, the father who has been unemployed and is searching everywhere for a job, but must still find money every time they go to the shops to pay the 2.5% levy. So are you telling me that this company is not going to benefit from the security? So we, the local St. Lucians, have to pay that 2.5 for security to protect the company, but the company is not going to contribute anything?
But isn't the company already getting a waiver on certain duties and taxes?
The company is already getting duty-free on
right.
all the other things they are doing. The little contribution of the 2.5% health and security levy You are waiving it for them, and I, as a St. Lucian, must continue to pay that 2.5. But you see, when we remain silent and we remain quiet in this country, and they figured out that if they pass it on the eve of Carnival, that we would not know. Now, further, this appears to be completely illegal. And I'm hoping that you read this letter from the leader of the opposition.
Let me just share with you, the viewers of St. Lucia, the details of this statutory instrument, which is a mechanism that governments use to pass such waivers. The order may be cited as the health and security tax. The number of the statutory instrument is number 108 of 2024, and it reads as follows: without prejudice to section 4 and 9 of the Health and Citizen Security Levy Act, number 16 of 2023, the rate of levy on goods and services provided by consultants, contractors, subcontractors, suppliers, and utility companies to Rodney Bay City Centre Limited and contractors of Rodney Bay City Centre Limited for the Rodney Bay City Centre Limited project, an approved development which comprises the construction of a luxury, touristic, residential, and commercial complex, is varied from 2.5 to 0%. So in other words, the government is saying that if you're supplying this company, if you are doing a job on behalf of this company, if you're doing any services on behalf of this company or towards this project, that you do not have to pay the 2.5%. However, if you went to build a house for Guy Joseph or to build a house for you, the viewers, then you need to pay the 2.5%. We must remember, Guy Joseph, that the supplier is a collector of the tax, and you are the end user, are the ones who actually pay the levy. So basically the government is waiving the levy on behalf of the developers of Rodney Bay City Centre Limited. We're told that this is a Trinidadian company. These days the government seems to be subscribing to their own mantra of family, friends, and foreigners.
So we need to understand. And I know that a letter has been sent to the Honorable Philip J. Pierre highlighting that this may very well be an illegal move by the Cabinet of Ministers.
And the leader of the opposition, in very strong language, has penned a letter to the Prime Minister of St. Lucia. And really, the letter is entitled An Unlawful and Unjust Waiver of the 2.5% under the Health and Security Levy Act granted to Rodney Bay City Centre Limited. The letter was dated 17th of July and addressed to Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre. And I'll just take an excerpt from the letter to share with you, the viewers. It is now available on Facebook on the Leader of the Opposition, Alan Chasney's Facebook page. But we're just going to share an excerpt from it. And it says, I write you today, Prime Minister, to express serious concerns over your government's recent action in respect of the Health and Citizen Security Levy. On Friday, July 12th, 2024, the public became aware in statutory instrument number 108 of 2024 that the Cabinet of Ministers granted a 0% levy to the consultants, contractors, subcontractors, and suppliers and utility companies to Rodney Bay City Centre Limited. This is selective exemption this selective exemption is both unlawful and unjust. I want to bring you in line.
It's important for you to read the second paragraph of the second page.
Sure.
Could you read it?
And the letter also goes on
the second page. The second paragraph on the second page.
Paragraph in the second page. It says, nowhere in the Act is there a provision that grants government the authority to selectively exempt goods and services providers from this levy for an approved developer, as you now seek to do. Rightly, all exemptions or increases should be and must be granted to the benefit of all or none. Couldn't agree with the leader of the opposition.
If that is fact, that's serious, yeah.
And the government continues to operate and make illegal decisions. We have seen the conduct of the Parliament of St. Lucia under the present Labour Party government. We have seen the decisions. And that's the point that I was making earlier. How can you go and waive or zero the 2.5% levy for a selected company, and the rest of us must continue to pay the 2.5% levy? Why? Are you telling me that this company is not required to contribute anything to the health and security levy? And listen, this thing is supposed to end next year. So why can't the developer, if you want to, either zero it for all of us or let the company wait for next year when it is removed for everybody?
So guys,
why should they be given special preferential treatment when they are already getting all of the other exemptions?
So if that...
And this is a tourism development, because the SI also said it's a touristic, luxury touristic development. So that it would mean that they would qualify for a whole host of tourism incentives. So it would mean corporate tax, it would mean duty-free concessions on building materials, it would mean waivers on fixtures and fixings and furnishings. They can bring in furnishers, they can bring in a lot of things already, granting them a very, very generous concessions from the Tourism Act. Any concessions available under the housing, they would also qualify for this. Any concessions under the Fiscal Incentive Act, which is run by Emma Hippolyte's ministry. So this is a sweetheart deal. The government must publish the entire suite of concessions that is going to Rodney Bay Development Limited. But what we have access to, this really is a complete betrayal of the people of St. Lucia, who have had to pay for healthcare and security. And you know, you gentlemen will agree with me that both healthcare and both security are in a terrible state in this country. Both are underinvested in. And so if you are going to give a tax break, how do you rationalize that? How do you call on poor people to pay? I mean, this does not even give all people a break, you know. If you're a senior citizen, Guy Joseph, this does not give you a break.
Nope.
So I'm only basing what I see here. And if this second paragraph that you just read out corresponds to what's in the Act, I have not seen the Act, but if it corresponds, the government must be able to again answer the question, why is this done? And that's the bottom line.
The Attorney General will have to come and explain to the people of St. Lucia on what legal basis is the exemption granted.
Exactly.
And that is why we need to keep check on how this government is governing. It is obvious that they cannot govern, because how can you break the rules that you passed in Parliament? You are the one who went, you are the one who wrote the act for the levy, you are the one who introduced it to Parliament, you are the one who did everything, and today you are coming and you are giving an exemption to one company while the rest of us are required to pay.
The most egregious thing about this, gentlemen, is that the United Workers' Party in the Parliament, on the political platform, on the RoundTable, on Sky FM, we said that when the government was contemplating the levy, 2.5, already you had bus fares. You remember?
Yes.
Right? Bus fares were already increased. Bread, right? Gas. You were at the forefront, Guy Joseph, at discussions calling on the government to cap the price of gas, which was at $17. They put the tax in that same environment where people are already struggling, right, to to make ends meet, and now you betray the people who have been paying this tax because you say it's for health and for security. But they fooled us as well in terms of how the monies were allocated, because we saw in the budget that the healthcare budget for that corresponding year went down. This year, the security budget went down.
In fact, the Prime Minister misled us. We must never forget that, because this was not just health and security. It was a requirement of CDB to secure a policy-based loan. So you implemented under false pretense a levy on the people of St. Lucia. And you remember the Chamber of Commerce requested that this thing be postponed until January. It could not be. The Prime Minister said it cannot be done. And 1 year later, you are coming back and you are putting it zero for a developer. Now, the United Workers' Party does not have a problem with the developer. This is not the developer's problem. It is the developer's right to ask. Yeah. The issue of granting is that of the government. And it is not the developer, it is the government who have betrayed the trust again of the people of St. Lucia. Mr. Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre, how many times do you have to be a Judas? How many times do you have to betray the people of this country? How many times do you have to make people suffer? Because that is, so you are now showing us that for those you want, you can exempt the 2.5%, but you have left the majority of the population to languish and suffer under the wicked acts of your government. Gas continues to be at the highest in the region. Bread. And look at our roads. Our roads are in the most deplorable condition. For almost 4 years, we are suffering on that Millennium Highway and that roundabout at Cul-de-sac Junction. And it cannot be completed. And you are satisfied that you are governing. How much more will you, Philip J. Pierre, do to the people of St. Lucia? How much more wickedness does your government have to do in order for you to be satisfied? And since we're under security, because we're talking about health and security,
it segues beautifully into our next conversation. And gentlemen, with the remaining 10 minutes of the show, I want to discuss a matter of national importance, and that is what are you all finding out about developments within the police force?
So first of all, we know for a fact that the present commissioners, or the then commissioner, Ms. Pellius, contract had been terminated on the 31st of March. There's no question about that. It's not an if or a but. That happened. As to whether she was reappointed, that is for the government to clarify. So she was terminated. She may have been reappointed, but we are hearing now that she's been terminated again. Now that is the information that we have. I cannot verify this information, but I would believe that the Minister of National Security would have come forward, Mr. Philip J. Pierre, Prime Minister, and explained to us. And there seemed to be an anomaly. And that brings us back to the CIP. So I want St. Lucians, following this roundtable discussion, to pay attention to what I'm saying. The Commissioner of Police is usually the de facto Chief Immigration Officer, so would be accountable for the issuance of passports and all of this through the inspector that is in charge. Passports is under Home Affairs. The police is under national security. Who is responsible? Is the commissioner still the person responsible for CIP passports or for the passport office? Because these are the things that are happening. Now, if the commissioner is no longer responsible, because when Honorable Emma Hippolyte said that she was going to investigate the briefcase under passports, and you know the Labour Party have an affinity to briefcases. It's either briefcase of money or briefcase of passports. Anyway, she said she was going to investigate and report back. Has she reported back to us?
We have not heard.
Now,
that would be Virginia Poyet, right? Dr. Virginia Poyet?
Yes, Virginia,
okay.
not Emma. Okay. My apologies.
We just want to make
Emma.
sure that we don't open up ourselves.
Honorable Virginia Poyet was the Minister for Home Affairs. Now, who is the Minister for Home Affairs now?
I am not sure, because this government is shrouded in secrecy.
They created
no, there's the minister responsible for crime prevention.
Yeah.
That's Jeremiah.
That's Jeremiah.
National Security was the Prime Minister. But Jeremiah has acted on occasions as Home Affairs. I think he may have held...
So
when she was
so
sick,
is, that's your it. Is Honorable Virginia Poyet back in the cabinet?
I'm no longer in Babylon.
Yeah. but what's even more egregious than this is that we are hearing now that the police commissioner have been asked to go on pre-retirement leave. Yeah, and this may be in relation to efforts that she may have been making to get regional help to investigate the allegations of sexual harassment made against the deputy police commissioner. Now, and we say allegations, and so the government of St. Lucia must come out, and to me, I'm throwing the question to you, gentlemen, should the Prime Minister not come out and clear up speculation over whether the police commissioner is being asked to step aside because she has initiated to get regional help to get this investigation going? Mr. Ellis, I want to hear from you.
My comment on all of this, Dominic and Guy, is that basically I cannot understand why an accusation would be made against an individual and he has not come out to say anything about that allegation. I think if that allegation was made against me, I'd be the first to come to the press and say, listen, I'm innocent or I'm guilty, or whatever the case may be. Or there may be more details to come. But I have not heard anything from Mr. Ronald.
But why Mr. Guy Joseph has not said anything? Is it even more bizarre to you that the Prime Minister continues to solidify his position as Deputy Police Commissioner?
But it's important that they should be able to bring him and make him make a statement on this. Because it's not just the ordinary man on the street who it is alleged has committed a crime. It's a significant person in the security and law agency of this country.
So let's recall some events. The Prime Minister was eager to come to Parliament with a birth certificate. Remember? To show that he is not the godfather. You remember that? Now, it's obvious that our Prime Minister is very slow. A godfather does not necessarily mean the name on the birth certificate. A godfather in our local vernacular is that that is a go-to person, somebody who's going to be there for you. Not necessarily who went to the church and who was standing in the place and signed the register.
But that's irrelevant.
That's irrelevant.
That has nothing to do
but
with
look, listen. So when the Prime Minister wants to pretend that he doesn't know what is going on and there's not information, he has all the information at his disposal. Whatever letters were written to the commissioner, you have it in your possession. Bring it out. The same way you went to the registry and found a birth certificate to show that you're not the godfather. You have a greater responsibility to clear the air on national security. People are speculating. They are speculating about passports. They are speculating about who is in charge of the passport office. And now there's more speculation about whether the commissioner has been terminated. Not just pre-retirement leave, but terminated, because the rumor is that she engaged Original Impacts to investigate the allegations of sexual harassment by a senior police officer.
That's very damning.
I think that the country has a right to know what is going on. And the Prime Minister, who is the Minister of National Security, you have a Home Affairs Minister, and you have a Minister of Crime Prevention. 3 ministers. And let me tell you, these 3 ministers are not by accident. It is to try and confuse the minds of the people of St. Lucia, plus an Attorney General. So that makes it 4 persons. So you never really know who to hold accountable. But Mr. Prime Minister, we hold you accountable. Ultimately, the buck stops with you. And we expect you to tell us what the status is and whether an investigation was commissioned into the allegations of sexual misconduct.
But in addition to that, gentlemen, I think, in addition to what you say, and you're right, in addition to that, I would like to really make a strong appeal to Mr. Philip, because the buck stops with him as well. He is the man in the center of the alleged misconduct in the police force. And if he wants his junior officers to be upfront with anything that comes against them, he should set the example and say to St. Lucia, he's at the top ranking of the force. He has a responsibility to the country, not to the minister, not to the political party, not to anybody else, but to the country. Because if the present commissioner of police, for whatever reason, demits office, it seems likely that he is in line. So he has a responsibility to clear the air. He cannot govern the police force with that hanging over his head. So it's his responsibility to come out and say, listen, and get the matter settled. Whether he's guilty or not, that's for him to come out and tell the public.
All right, gentlemen, we're running out of time. Our producers are signaling. I want to say to our listeners, thank you so very much for joining us this evening on the Roundtable. Really fantastic discussion. I want to thank you both, gentlemen, for taking the time and sharing your perspective on these rather important issues of national development. I'm going to ask Mr. Guy Joseph just to close in a few seconds, and Mr. Ellis close in a few seconds. Mr. Joseph.
Yes, so it's nice to be back in the discussion in terms of what is happening. I am appealing to all St. Lucians. This is our country. This country does not belong to the Labour Party. Everything that is happening is going to affect us. We have seen what happened with Carnival and the nepotism and the favoritism and all of the things that went on, and there's a lot more that's going to be revealed. We have seen what is happening with the CIP program and the longer term implications. I know we didn't touch the issue of corresponding banking that the Prime Minister of Dominica was discussing, but these can have serious implications. If we were to lose the status of corresponding banking, nobody would be able to use their credit card to buy a single item online. You would not be able to book a hotel, buy an airline ticket, nothing. These have major implications. And I find it strange that the Chamber of Commerce and the business people have been so quiet with all of these things that are happening. This is not a fight for the United Workers' Party alone. We are talking about students that are going to school, those that are going to university, parents who have the ways of sending money to their kids overseas. All of these things can be impacted by the careless and reckless behavior of this government in how it is handling the CIP. Then we come to the 2.5% levy. It is egregious that you can waive it for a company while the rest of us are called upon on a daily basis to find that 2.5% and to pay after you misled us in the first instance. And then the issue of security. Given the level of criminal activity in this country, the last thing you would want is a headless police force, where people are wondering, we are already wondering who is the minister. So we know that the minister, it's chaotic to determine who is the minister. But there must be clear direction as to who is guiding and leading the police force. And this cannot be left to speculation. So we are calling on you, Mr. Prime Minister, to give us clarity on these issues. We know you are a regular follower of the Roundtable, and we expect to get answers from you.
He's a regular follower of the Roundtable indeed. We're going to have to copy Tim's slogan. We are the second most monitored talk show in the world. Mr. Ellis.
All right, Dominic, thank you. It's my pleasure being here. I really would like to just say that for Carnival, there are pluses and there are minuses. We need to have a more balanced committee for the benefit of being objective in some of the things and to try and help the committee make sure that there's no conflict of interest, corruption within the segment of Carnival. I also want to say that the police need to review the traffic congestion. We have to deal with how the bands use the roads and how the roads are used, because I know that there's some problems. With regards to the question of the levy, I think that I'm very concerned about that. That levy should not be touched. If it's for health and security or whatever it is there for, it should be for everybody or none at all, if the act is so. According to the leader of the opposition, I would like the government to look seriously at that. With regards to the question of the commissioner with the allegations, I think we would love to know, the people of St. Lucia would love to respect the hierarchy of the force. And when the hierarchy of the force doesn't want to respect themselves and come out and deal with situations like that, if the alleged situation is true, they should be man enough, he should be man enough to come out and defend himself to the public, because he wants to be respected by the average citizen. We can't be condemning the criminals and the other persons, and then we have doubts about the people who head the force. I just want to thank you very much for allowing me to come and express my views on certain things. As a citizen of St. Lucia, I want to wish everybody in the United Party well, and I want to hope that the government must understand that they're not only there for St. Lucia Labour Party supporters, they're government of all the people. And therefore, if their slogan or their motto is transparency, the questions about Galaxy and passports and things like that, they should be open and frank with us, because that's what they're there for. That's what they claim to be, transparent and open to the people of St. Lucia.
All right,
Thank
there
you.
you have it for tonight, another edition of the Roundtable. I want to thank Guy Joseph and Lionel Ellis for joining us here today. I want to thank our production team as well. This has been a proud production of the United Workers' Party. Join us next week, Thursday at 8:30 p.m. when we'll be right back with another edition of scintillating discussion right here on the Roundtable. See you next time.